Welcome everybody. This is our Nnpcf AGM for officially for the 22-23 year. So we're going to take you through a few bits and pieces. So here we are. Actually, I should start by introducing myself, shouldn't I? My name is Murula Sisodia. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Nnpcf. I'm also the East of England steering group member.
And good evening, I'm Tina Emery. I'm the other co-chair and I am based in the Southwest. I'm part of Somerset Forum.
And I think you are all reasonably familiar now with the drill on these things. So we will go through some slides. Please do put things in the chat. We'll try and pick things up as we go. Please forgive us if we don't pick up every comment. It's not deliberate. It's just obviously presenting and reading the chat can be a little tricky at times, and we might also be constrained on time. We're also very aware that we are taking up your valuable evenings with your family. One of your valuable evenings with your family, and so we'll try and have a hard close at 8 o'clock. I know for one that my two will be demanding their pudding at that stage. So that I can't think of a more compelling reason to close then anyway. So welcome everybody. This is our AGM, and this is what we're going to cover today. So we'll start off with a bit of a review of the last year and a bit. So we will cover the official the actual financial year to 2021-22, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's been going on since April, and then we'll segue into looking forward into the next year, into and beyond. And each year we do try and co-produce with you our priorities. We'll talk a little bit about what we did with your priorities, the priorities you told us about last year. And we'll also talk a little bit about our thoughts on how we might co-produce going forwards. You will be pleased or horrified to know, I'm not sure which, that there is some Menti polls that towards the end of this presentation to help us to get your views on what our priorities should be going forwards. So we will be looking for you to do some work and to give us some input. So let me crack on. So a review the last year and a bit. So at our conference last year, we set these priorities together. So this was done very much in conjunction with you. We actually circulated a list of approximately 40 or so issues that have been raised with us consistently over the course of the year that we felt we wanted your input on, and we asked you to vote on which were the most important ones. And you came back with really clear messages. And from those messages, we distilled down these, what I describe as our 4+1 priorities for the year. The reason we talk about it as being 4+1 is that 4 of them are external real world things. And one of them is, the last one, is internal to the Nnpcf. And so we don't imagine that other people will be less interested in that, but given that it's our AGM, we actually wanted to cover off on that for you as well, and give you an update on how the Nnpcf is developing and what we're up to. So those 4+1 priorities were support COVID-19 response and recovery, which has loomed large over the last few years, the SEND review and wider policy initiatives. So we'll talk a little bit about the work we've done there. The NHS long-term plan and the other structural changes that are taking place in the health system, and then improving accountability in the SEND system. So this really is about the conclusion of the last round of Ofsted CQC local area inspections and the framing of the new round, the coming round. And then finally operating effectively as a CIC. So we're actually going to start at the end and talk to you first about what we've done to operate effectively as a CIC before we loop back and talk about our external priorities. So Tina, over to you.
Thank you. So we've made really good progress in towards setting up a really good, strong, robust infrastructure as a community interest company. Prior to this year, we obviously tried to set up a bank account during COVID, and I wouldn't recommend it because it just couldn't happen. So it did delay us slightly, but we've now actually established a real good governance, clear governance structure that actually makes each regional steering group member a director of our company, our community interest company. We place regional feedback at the heart of what we do every day. We literally, every time we catch up, which is weekly now, we ask for feedback within the region on certain subjects, and we get that by the bucket load. This then also feeds into our management team as well, which we've now set up, and it's a strong management team, and it's run, they're established by actually running day-to-day activities for us on our behalf. We do make sure that there's key strategic decisions about the Nnpcf are co-produced with our membership, which is one of the reasons why we're doing our mentee in a little while. And of course, we co-produced our values with the members and stakeholders. And you may remember we sent out emails to various people asking what the key words were to do with the Nnpcf. And if by magic, if Marina presses this button, you'll see them. She says, there we are. So these are the key values that we co-produced with you and our stakeholders. So it's co-production, integrity, passion, collective lived experience, and challenge and impact. And there are our values that are now and current and will be for a little while yet. Thank you. Next slide.
Cool. Just before we go on, I'd like to say thanks to Melissa, who's our comms lead, a member of the management team, who has put very clever little links into this presentation, which will be sent out afterwards, so that if you want more details on any of these items, you can click on the link and it will take you to the relevant news item on our on the Nnpcf website, because we do try and keep you updated on everything that we do, and we've had over 40 odd news items published this year, so you can link back and get more detail on any of this stuff by clicking on the links.
And she's on the chat as well, actually. She's just put no problem with a smiley face, which is lovely. Next slide, thank you. So this year we've transferred all our operations. Oh, this is the same slide, isn't it? Oh no, transferred all our operations to a new community interest company after delays with the result of COVID. So new bank account, and literally making sure all our governance is up together. We've set up employment contracts with the steering group and management team. We've moved our accounting to the new system of QuickBooks. We've got a finance lead who leads on that, and we've set up a HR system and support through Citrus HR. So all of our claims for expenses, our holiday, our sickness, it's all through that, and it's great because we end up with HR advice through Citrus as well. We've moved our IT into a dedicated person and a more robust infrastructure. So we've now got an outside company that looks after our IT systems with our IT lead. And we've increased our communications reach further than ever before. So we've now done 40 new website posts about our work, and our social media presence is growing on Facebook with a reach of 671,000. And like I say, Melissa is on the call today, and she does post regularly for us on behalf of us to make sure that you are informed and you can feed that information back to your local area, so you know exactly which way the travel is from government and down. Next slide.
Just one thing I wanted to draw out there is that this was really important to me personally around setting up particularly the employment contracts and getting the real rights that we have done in the Nnpcf, because for the first time we've actually got Nnpcf members with proper employment rights. So people get holiday, they get sickness, they get pensions for the work that they do, and we've insisted on all of that being set up properly, because we firmly believe that the work that parent carer forums and parent carers do is valuable and should be recognised, and that's something that it's really important for us to model that.
So the finances. So this is a first for us to present the finances in a little bit more detail through an AGM. Usually we didn't necessarily do it in this detail, but we are now because we're a community interest company and we're transparent. So for the last 6 months up to the 31st of March 2022, our income has been 102,000, mostly from 2 large participation contracts with the DfE and NHS England. We've had to pay wages, national insurance and pension, as Maruno said, and that's equated to 78,000. And other expenses has been 28,000 on IT costs, professional fees, travel and accommodation. Our travel actually budget is less than previous because obviously of COVID, and it's less than pre-COVID. So we're looking after travel and we're working a bit more smarter, I think. Our budget for the current year shows income at 220,000 with an expenditure planned of £212,000.
Great, and just to say, just be absolutely clear on things like professional fees. That is the things that we spoke about earlier. That's our IT services, our IT infrastructure, our HR advisors, and of course our accountants who we have to pay to audit our financial statements. And our 6 months financial statements to the 31st of March 22 are filed with Companies House, so you can go find them there if you want further details. Okay, bringing us back to the 4 priorities that talk about our work representing you with decision makers and policy makers and commissioners. So we're going to take each one of these in turn and talk a little bit about what we've done around these 4 buckets of work. So supporting COVID. So one of the big areas of work was the return to school last September, the real full-blown return to school, everybody back in. There was a huge push from the Department for Education that they and others, including the Children's Commissioner, asking for 100% attendance on the first day back in school in September. We had significant issues with this because this was the way this was presented. We did not feel was very helpful to children and young people with SEND, particularly those that might have anxiety or those that might have had real dislocation during the lockdowns, and expecting them to jump straight back into 100% attendance we thought was not helpful, especially given the way that some of the language around this was framed, which was really punitive against families. So we have had some very, I describe it as robust discussions with the Department for Education and with the Children's Commissioner, amongst others, about making sure that the right tone is adopted when it comes to attendance in schools at the minute. To be honest, we aren't there. We aren't there yet. The tone still continues to be in unguarded moments from politicians and others about a real drive and a sense that they want everybody back in school no matter what. But we've done some really powerful work supported by you. We had a call for evidence last September or so, which gave us really powerful anecdotes about the impact that a very crude approach to getting children back in school had on the well-being and health of children, and the challenges that were really being faced by our families in getting children back into school, and the need for a much more holistic and supportive approach. So we've definitely landed that message, and some of the guidance that's been issued around this has incorporated that message. But again, some of the comms and more, maybe some of the more political messaging from the Department for Education sometimes misses this. So we're going to keep banging that drum. We've also, a big area of our work has been highlighting the impact of COVID, the backwash from COVID, on the delivery of particularly community-based services to our families. That's a really strong message that's gone through to the top of the house at the NHS. And those of you who joined the webinar this afternoon will be able to find a lot more detail on what the NHS are doing in response to that. Most specifically, and really encouragingly, they've set up a children's community services team at NHS England, which did not exist before. Right, moving on, the SEND review and wider policy initiatives. So This has been incredibly frustrating. If I might speak personally for a moment, you know, Tina and I met with Nadeem Zahawi, who was at that point, long before he was party chairman, Conservative Party chairman, when he was the humble Minister for Children and Families, in the House of Parliament in July 2019. And we asked him to launch what we didn't call it a SEND review. We used the language of we needed a joined up SEND strategy that was properly researched and properly put together across education, health and social care in July 2019. So I have been waiting since July 2019 and before for the output of this SEND review. And we are bitterly disappointed that a series of basically political shenanigans, changing of prime ministers and secretaries of state for education and children and families ministers has delayed us, because whilst the government has been fiddling, Rome has been burning. Nevertheless, we have been very engaged in the SEND Green Paper, and so were parent carer forums. There were lots and lots of engagement events, and our survey attracted 1,300 responses, which was shared at the highest levels of the DFE and definitely did influence the consultation. Now, where are we with the SEND Green Paper and Improvement Plan? The Department for Education is on record as saying that they intend that the improvement plan will be published before March. So that suggests very strongly that it's going to be next month, because we are now on the 31st of January. So that is going to suggest that it's going to be in February. And we have been in conversations with the Department for Education to come and talk to us at our conference and actually co-produce some elements of the implementation plan with us. I think it is reasonable for us to share at this point that both Tina and I have seen drafts of the improvement plan. We have had to sign non-disclosure agreements to review those drafts, but we have put comments forward based upon the feedback that we had from you, particularly in the surveys that we did in the surveys and consultation events we did leading up to the Green Paper consultation. So we are expecting there to be announcements very shortly on that. We're not in a position to say any more at this point in time, but the minute we can share with you, we will. So yes, I'll move on there, but certainly watch this space, because we're hoping that by the time we get to conference in Bristol, our face-to-face conference in Bristol at the end of February, 28th of February, we will have a lot more meat on these bones, and we'll be able to actually really re-engage in co-producing the future for our children. So the NHS long-term plan and other structural changes, what have we been doing here? So we've partnered with NHS England at a national, regional, and local level to roll out some of the key elements of the NHS long-term plan, most notably the Autism in Schools project and the Key Working project, as well as setting up numerous communities of practice around these things. The Autism in Schools project is getting fantastic feedback. What we hear from parent carer forums and from user groups, people who actually have parents who've experienced this, has been overwhelmingly positive. And there's a reason for that, because it goes to the heart of the principles of what we want to see in every single one of the service delivery, which is co-produced, person-centered, and joined up. And Autism in Schools is wonderful because it does all of those things with knobs on. The Key Working is now rolled out across the whole country, and it's in 3 phases. Various parts of the country are different, various localities are at different stages and different phases on that. But we have been awaiting for a long time the new Dynamic Support Register and Care Education and Treatment Review Policy, which was published last week. We will be reviewing it, publishing our response, and organising some webinars for forums on what that means. So we've already agreed that we will be running some webinars over the coming weeks with NHS England. So look out for those. Haven't got dates yet. As I said, it was only published last week. And we've also done a lot of work with NHS England and Contact on what do integrated care systems mean for SEND, for parent care reforms. And really the objective of these webinars has been to equip you as local and regional groups to engage effectively with your integrated care systems, care boards and care partnerships. Actually, we can insert a link to those webinars in these slides before they go out. Just notice we're missing those links. And then lastly, improving accountability in the SEND system. What have we done? So we've had a lot of engagement with Ofsted and the Care Quality Commission in the creation of the new local area inspection framework. We are quite pleased with this because it is much less about process than the previous framework. So they're not really looking at how well local authorities and CCGs, as they were then, are doing against timeframes, for example. They're looking much more at outcomes. The PCFs are baked into the new inspection regime. We are mentioned 6 times in the guidance and framework, so you should be engaged in a lot more consistently than we have been previously. And we're going to be working to create probably an MS Teams form of some kind to ask parent care reforms that have been inspected under the new framework to give us their feedback. The idea being we'll collate this feedback, we'll share it with you, and we'll, just as importantly, share it with Ofsted and the Care Quality Commission to let them know how this is working out and what parents are thinking and feeling about this. Also, really, I just wanted
to add, because it's really important that actually we learn from the forums that have just gone through this new framework, actually to know what to expect when the framework inspections come to you, because it's new. Although we've had pilot areas, they did focus on one individual thing, not necessarily what it looks like together. And so far we're on the second inspection for the new framework, which is in Warrington currently. And it's then going to Cornwall next week. So we really need to learn from these areas that are being inspected currently.
Yeah, please look out for those forms and be really grateful if you have been inspected to complete the form so we can all learn from it. And lastly, in the Ofsted annual report, SEND was a major theme in ways that it previously hasn't been. So SEND is clearly very much on the radar of Ofsted, and they very much recognise the what can only be described as the current crisis in SEND in particularly mainstream schools. So some other areas of work. So we actually did step outside of these 4 priorities occasionally because there were other things going on. And just to call out some of these things. So we're part of a successful consortium led by the National Autistic Society to deliver Health Education England's Autism Peer Education Programme. So this is where families and people who are parents and carers of children with autism are going to be working to educate people, their peers or people who have newly gathered a diagnosis or think that their children may be autistic. We have built links with the Department for Education's new regions group. So these are replacing the regional schools commissioners, and we're looking to get further traction and engagement with those. We've joined the Delivering Better Value in SEND steering group and have arranged briefings for local PCFs on the project. And I think that there's a session, is it tomorrow, Tina, on delivering better value in SEND being presented at the conference, or is it Thursday? I forget.
Yeah, no, it's Wednesday, and I think it's o'clock. Yeah, and I will be on that with them, but it's Newton who are the main partner for the Delivering Better Value for SEND programme. More
details coming on that tomorrow, as well as the posts you can reference there. And we also gave evidence. I also gave evidence to the Education Select Committee on SEND when they did a one-day session looking at the Green Paper, and as well as our consultation leads have responded to several national consultations and calls for evidence over the course of the year. So it's been a busy year.
So yes, it really has been a busy year, and one of the reasons we have put in the management team and the management structure in is because we are so busy, and I'll touch on why that is in a second. So our main structure, our regions still remain the same. So we've got 9 regions. We follow the DFE in their regions, but because London is such a massive area, we've got 2 steering group members for London, which is why we've got 10 steering group members. We've got 8 management team members that look after things like finance, comms, consultation, admin, IT, and I'm participation, and I'm sure there's others. My mind's gone blank. We have done 1,269 days of work for last year. This year, currently, we are on track to beat that, and we have worked in 69 different work streams, and it is increasing every year. But we've got 152 forums currently. We know that there could be 153 next year because of Cumbria splitting into 2. But currently our membership has grown massively, and I think it might be down to a direct result of COVID, but there's 111,000 members throughout England that are members of the National Network of Parent Care Forums. So we can't do this without you. You are amazing, and we can't say how amazing enough you are. The virtual coffee mornings that you hold, the peer support that you do, the signposting to different services like Sendias and other services within your local areas, the fact that you develop local Q&A, that you conduct surveys, you highlight the issues, you challenge, you champion parent carers' perspective right across your locality, and you really encourage local co-production. You provide important activities to support your members. There's some amazing stories through our annual report where, you know, the amazing work that you've carried out, from the key working programme to pods with the EP service, to, you know, little things like shoving a lovely box of goodies to families who need it the most in lockdown. Just being, you know, you work strategically across the systems, and you're more than being a mum, a dad, grandparent, foster carer, kinship carer. You're just amazing, and you just keep doing it, and you keep on going. And I'm immensely proud, we are immensely proud of being such part of such an amazing organisation, and we really couldn't do it without you, and you're just amazing. You really are superheroes, and your work is just the intelligence that we need to be able to do our job nationally, and it's what informs of our priorities and our positions. And we just want to take this opportunity to thank you all for everything you do. You are truly amazing.
Brilliant. And Tina said it all, and she's spoken very much for both of us there, and also on behalf of the whole of our steering group as well. So looking forward to 2023 and 24 and beyond, what do we want to be doing? So as ever with priorities, the knack is not choosing what you do, it's choosing what you don't do. Because the list of things that we could do is so long that it's impossible for us to do all of it to any degree of success. So we need to be quite clear about what's important to us and what we focus our time on, and make sure that we do focus on the things that are really going to make the biggest difference to us. And some of the things we've been mulling and discussing as a steering group and a board has been, how do we balance the long-term strategic changes that are coming versus the things that we need to do here and now? What level do we want to focus on things like operational fixes, the things that are going to make a difference to families' lives now versus the things that might actually make a really big impact in 3, 4, 5 years' time? And as ever, we've got to get the balance right between engaging across education, health, and social care. So, as Tina said, listening is the single most important thing that we do, and we listen through a variety of means to families and to local parent care reforms. So we've literally attended over the course of the last year hundreds of regional meetings and events. We've conducted lots and lots of member surveys, and we're getting more and more sophisticated at that through calls for evidence using MS forms. We've done a lot of things using Mentimeter, which has been brilliant. We've done a lot of things even using SurveyMonkey as well. So we're getting more and more sophisticated in the way in which we gather your feedback through formal sessions. We've monitor and we look at the closed Facebook page very, very closely. That is a real mine of phenomenal intelligence about what's going on, what you're talking about, what's concerning you, what's working, what's not working. And at times, we do just go out and ask you just ad hoc questions about the things that we are hearing. And as Tina mentioned earlier, this is all baked into, we draw on all of this stuff in an informal and a formal way. So we have weekly board and management team catch-ups. Now, some of those catch-ups will be just catch-ups with little or no agenda. Some of them will be very specific to a particular topic, and we might even have guests who come along and speak to that particular topic. But the idea being those weekly meetings are an opportunity for us to share what we have all heard in our regions and bring it to the national table and talk about that. And to formalize it as well, every quarter, we've got written into our articles of association that we must gather regional feedback at our board meetings, and we do that every quarter. We actually have a session, formal session at our board meetings where we bring all of our regional feedback and we document the key themes. So that listening is key. So what are we sort of hearing? Well, these are the maybe we've tried to distill out the 6 big buckets of work that we could get involved in, and maybe we should be getting involved in. And we want your help to help us order these and make sense of these. So the first is the SEND Green Paper development and its implementation. It's no secret that the DFE is talking about an improvement plan being the response to the SEND Green Paper, which will be a multi-year plan. So that is something that we clearly feel we should be engaging with. But balanced against that is the disappointment that we have all felt in getting to this point, and really the amount of time that it's taken, and the political turmoil that has really thrown the SEND Green Paper and SEND review between pillar and post over the last few years. Next up is the work to improve the SEND system as it is here and now. So these might be projects such as delivering better value in schools, in the autism, delivering better value in SEND, and the Autism in Schools project. So there are things going on now that are aimed at improving things right here and now. The next topic that keeps coming up a lot is the holistic well-being of parent carers. So we hear a lot about things like the cost of living, the health of our members and other parent carers, the paucity and difficulty in getting short breaks and respite. So there's something about that is coming through loud and clear to us. The next sort of bucket or topic is partnership working with integrated care systems. The health landscape is changing very rapidly, and these integrated care systems are going to be the backbone of everything that happens in health. And increasingly, if they do meet the ambitions that the government has laid out for them, will step into social care as well. Next up is improving health services for children and young people with SEND after the pandemic. So we are still, anybody who says to me that the COVID is over, for children and young people with SEND and their families is liable to get a tongue lashing from me, and because it is clearly not over. We are still very much feeling the backwash of COVID particularly in the community-based health services. And then lastly is the supporting the rollout of the new local area inspection framework. We all know how important the Ofsted CQC framework is to the implementation and how seriously local areas take SCND. So there's a lot of work around how we can support that. So those are sort of like the big buckets of themes that we've picked up over the course of the year. There's a little bit more detail on all of those on the next two slides, which I won't go through because I've kind of have just spoken to it. But when you get the slides, please do take a look at them. They will be distributed. And at this point, what I'll do is ask you to go to this this Menti slide. We would like your feedback. So hopefully I'm going to try and juggle between PowerPoint and Menti, and you can all give us your feedback on what you think an Nnpcf's priorities should be over the coming year.
If you struggle, I've got it up on my page, on my second screen. I put the Menti code in the chat as well. If you haven't got a smartphone next to you, or you're using your smartphone to look at the presentation.
Hopefully you can all see that Menti slide, and hopefully you can all reach the presentation and start and give us some input. Now what we're going to do is we're going to almost take a little bit of a take the temperature today. We've got over 30 participants today, so we're going to get a little bit of an idea of where you think we should be prioritizing our work. What we are also going to do is going to leave this poll open for the next 10 days or so that people who weren't able to join this presentation live can look at it and give us their input over the next 10 days or so. The idea being we'll reach as many parent care reforms as we possibly can in helping us set these priorities. So lots and lots of results coming through now, which is really great. Let me try and figure out if I can just move things around on my screen and see how many participants we have. So we're edging up to 10 people having participated in this poll. I'll keep it going for a little bit. I'll keep it going for a little bit longer, but we're starting to get some rankings here, which is really interesting, really good. So a real people are focusing us very much on the improving the SEND system here and now, and the well-being of parent carers, oh, it's just gone into the lead here. I feel like I should be a sports commentator here. Actually, I'm not sure I've got the skills to do that, but I'm sure there's a racing commentator out there who can do a better job of this than me.
And Holly's put in the chat, ranking the green paper implementation is hard to rank without knowing how much they listen to families and what it will hold. You're absolutely right, Holly. But I think what the question we're asking is actually we should be part. Is it important for us to be part of the development before it goes into implementation? So whilst you're right, the consultation report hasn't been released yet, we know it's on its way. And also this is, and then the so what after that. So this is why we're asking for the ranking. But yes, it's really hard. You can't judge something if you've not read it and you've not been part of it, and it's really difficult to do that.
But please give us a steer on whether you think we should be spending time on some of those strategic long-term changes that may be coming in that plan versus the balance between getting it right here and now.
And Melissa, our comms lead, has just put it in the chat. The Menti will also be shared on social media. So please make sure people respond to it through there as well.
Great. So we're getting a pretty strong steer here around where we should be spending our time, and we'll, as I said, we'll leave this poll open for 10 days or so to try and get as much feedback as we possibly can. And interestingly, really interestingly, there's not a lot, we shouldn't be doing too much around the new Ofsted inspection framework or partnering with integrated care systems. That's really interesting, and which is unexpected actually, because I think that it is a little different from the feedback we've been getting on the closed group and in the regions around the interest around that. So that's giving us a really good and interesting steer. Okay, so I'm going to move us on now, and let's see if I can figure out how to do this. And to the next slide. So great, some of you have got there already. So we are also very conscious of the fact that there might be other things that we, for whatever reason, haven't picked up, and we came up with a few in our own brainstorming early years, post-16 education, employment, and we wanted to give you the opportunity just to give us your thoughts in a word cloud. If you can try and use simple words rather than that can group together. So yeah, things like employment, SEM support, PFA, post-16, everything is things like that. That would be great. And we will look to see what we can do around these things as well. And the fact of the matter is that some of these things we have been doing bits and pieces of work on. So for example, in employment, we're a member of the DWP cross-government working group on employment for learning disability and autism, which does really interesting work across government. And it might well be that we put a little bit more emphasis on that if this is something that comes up strongly through this exercise. I'll leave it. I'll leave it for a minute or two. See the sorts of things we're getting. Yes, it seems to be strong call around employment, PFA, post-16 seems to be quite strong, and then children, SEN support, and children out of school. Interesting one, that community inclusion. It's one that I'm a big fan of that as well, in the sense that that's really making sure that our children have a place in society and that community, and because that's the heart of being happy for many people, isn't it? Brilliant. So we've got over 20 responses now. As I said, this will stay open, so please keep giving us your responses over the next 10 days or so, and please do share it with people in your forum steering groups as well, to get their input as well. Right, this is interesting. So where should our focus be? Please tell us how strongly you agree or disagree with these statements. So both statements can be answered independently. So it doesn't mean that you have to, if you give us a high score on one, you're going to give us a low score on the other. We just wanted to gauge what the appetite is there, what the appetite is like out there for us, continuing to do really strategic work, which is where our focus has broadly been the last couple of years, and where that balance should lie between the strategic work and the improving things here and now. This will really help us to shape where we prioritize our work. And it's fine for you to say that both are really important. And it's also fine for you to say that both are not very important, in which case we really need to go back and have a big think about what on earth we're doing. But at the moment, you seem to be telling us that they're both, both very important. They're both getting scores over 4, which tells me that you pretty much, you strongly agree, or you're edging towards strongly agreeing on both statements. But there is a small preference for focusing on the here and now, which is kind of where we were as a steering group as well. The discussions we've been having, again, that is very that's heartening, because it shows that we are connected with where we are, and probably frankly reflects some of the frustration we've all felt at the lack of progress in some of the strategic work. because, frankly, of the political turmoil. Cool. So that is really, really interesting. Thank you. Again, it'll stay open. So we'll hopefully get feedback over the next 10 days or so. I will stop sharing this and see if I can very cleverly go back to our presentation. And miraculously, I can. Let me see if I can go back a slide. Here we go. Yeah. As well as the external stuff, we are going to continue to build the infrastructure of the Nnpcf. So as Tina mentioned earlier and spoke a lot about some of the improvements we've made over the last year, that's all great, but we really need to bed those in and make sure it's working really it's really working really well and safely. So some of the things we're looking at doing over the next year are some new branding and logo, looking at a new website which will have a lot more functionality in it. We'll be co-producing all of this stuff with you. We will continue to respond to key consultations and calls for evidence as they come out, because of course we don't always have a say on when they emerge. And we'll continue to support our employees and national representatives as well as we can. We're always looking for new national representatives. If you would like to be involved in any of the work that we've described today at this AGM, please contact us. You know where you can reach us. The best email to get us is actually participation@nnpcf.org.uk. So please email us, and we will get Jackie, who is our participation lead, to liaise with you to see whether we can get you onto our national representatives team. So always looking for new members there and fresh perspectives. Okay, the next steps. What are we going to do with this? So we will collate your feedback and we'll create a business plan for 23-24. And we'll use the input you've given us today and throughout the year and continue to give us to shape the next phase of our Nnpcf strategy. We will do this before we meet in Bristol on the 28th of February. So please join us there. I think that the attendance there is ticking upwards. The last count I saw, I think we were at a not quite full capacity, but we are. I suspect we will get there before the end of the next fortnight. So if you do want to join us in Bristol, and you can join us in Bristol, please do. I think it's going to be a wonderful day, and I'll ask Tina to talk a little bit about it in a moment. And a key part of that day is we anticipate by then that the Send AP improvement plan will have been published, and we anticipate at that point sharing our response to that plan. And also we will have the Department for Education in attendance there and we hope to be able to start the co-production of a core element of that plan with the Department for Education, which is namely the national standards. Cool. Tina, over to you to wrap up.
Yes, I just want to say a little bit about the conference. So we will be meeting at the Doubletree, which is literally a 5-minute walk from the Temple Mead station. We've got lots of things happening, including a co-production session with the DFE around national standards, and that's in the afternoon. There will be a hybrid offer, but we really would love people to be there face to face if they can. And of course, in the evening, we're going to get our glad rags on and let our hair down and have a bit of a celebration, which we haven't done before, but we feel that it's needed on the back of the 2 years we've just gone through, and the fact that in 2019 at our last conference, it was like, if anything could happen, it happened at Chester. So we want to put that to bed now, moving forward, fresh, new, conference in Bristol on the 28th. There'll give me lots of people there, including the DFE, NHS England, and it'll just be a really good event for us to come together to network, meet people, and have conversations with like-minded people. It's going to be fabulous. And of course, you know, a good opportunity to co-produce something with the SEND and the AP department within the DFE, which is fantastic. Is there anything you wanted to add?
And just the last thing on the comment, we will be having a minister in attendance, parliamentary diaries allowing.
Yes, fingers crossed. We hope that Minister Coutinho will be in attendance. If not, it will be video, but we're hoping that she's going to turn up. With, as Marino said, as long as her parliamentary diary allows. So fingers crossed that she'll be there in person. That'd be great. But there will be lots of senior members of the DFE in attendance as well to help with the networking and talking to you, which is the most important thing from our day. It's one thing we strive for. So thank you for joining us tonight. I don't think we've got any more slides, have we?
No,
I've answered things in the chat as we've gone along, so there's nothing really to add other than, yes, you're right, we have had a hybrid offer, and yes, there is potential teacher strikes, which is not helpful on the 1st of March. But we're trying to make sure that there's something for everybody. And thank you for joining us very late on this Tuesday evening. So thank you.